Okay, we'll call this regular city commission meeting of Monday, July 21st to order. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As always, we begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with a roll call from, for now, Deputy Clerk Lutz, please.
Commissioner Shaw.
Here.
Commissioner Stanley.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Werner.
Here.
Mayor.
Here. And we'll keep that moving with announcements from the acting city manager. Go right ahead.
Mayor, Commissioner, concerned citizens, I have a few updates for you. The Traverse City Light and Power bond sale was completed last week, and the city received 10 bids. TD Securities was the low bid, and the true interest cost came in lower than projected, which is very positive. We expect to close August 6th, and we'll have the funds shortly after the Traverse City Light and Power available for Traverse City Light and Power to get moving on improving the utility system, including smart grid technology.
Fantastic.
Great job for our city treasurer and their team, did a great job. Also, some kudos go out to our city IT department. Great progress has been made on the city's IT implementation and transition to being independent, and we are wrapping up the final steps. There are always last-minute issues that arise with a project of this magnitude, so kudos to Jerry Swanson and Porter Belling for their Herculean efforts on this. I will be attending the MME, the Michigan Municipal Executives Conference, this week, Wednesday through Friday. The scope of the agenda is very diverse, from market volatility and its impact on change orders to humanizing local government, strategic planning and visioning processes, and also year-round community engagement efforts, and a session on not everything is yours to carry. So interesting, interesting sessions. We are still continuing to seek information from the community on our parks surveys. So if you have not done so, please take an opportunity to go to the city's webpage, and link to the surveys are there. We did send out a memo to the neighborhood associations today reminding them and asking them to please share that with their respective neighbors. And then lastly, I wanted to share that the city previously approved the city manager or their designee be appointed to the County Board of Public Works. And the county's motion stated Liz Vogel by name, so we are asking that an amendment be made to the county motion to address the city's request. So those are all my updates at this point.
Great, thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to announcements from the Deputy City Clerk, please.
So this week, meetings scheduled are the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee will meet on Wednesday, July 23rd at 9 a.m. at Hickory Hills Lodge. And then boards and commissions, we're looking for individuals to step up for the Local Officers Compensation Committee and Parks and Recreation Commission. There's 2 seats expiring there. And then just as a reminder, the filing deadline for the Office of Mayor and City Commission is tomorrow, July 22nd at 4 p.m. Please do not wait till 3:59. Please show up before then. As a reminder, the city issues a weekly news e-letter and the Bay Brief. Please subscribe. You can find the link on our website. And I would like to remind commissioners, staff, and members of the public to speak into the microphones so that those watching at home and the recording of this meeting is easily heard. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll keep that going with you, Ms. Lutz, and the consent calendar.
The consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of July 7th, 2025 and July 14th, 2025 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. 2, consideration of authorizing a consent to assignment of 3 oil and gas leases at the city-owned Brown Bridge Quiet Area, and consideration of authorizing the related documents. Approval recommended. 3, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the 2025 Cape Seal project contract to include additional street segments. Approval recommended. 4, consideration of authorizing a blanket purchase order for water meters. Approval recommended.
Thank you. Is there any item that a commissioner would like? Go ahead, Heather. Number 2. Any other items? Is there any item other than item number 2 that the public would like to pull from the consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a motion.
I move that we accept the consent calendar as amended.
Thank you. I'll give that to Treadwell and Stanley. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Go ahead, Heather, for number 2. You had some, you wanted to
Right,
pull this?
I sent in a question earlier today. Lauren was going to get back to me, but probably just got away from her. So in the letter from the attorney, it says that the scope of the consent letter from the actual, I don't know if you call it company that's taking over these leases, doesn't include an opinion of title. So the attorney is operating on the assumption that there are 3 City of Traverse City oil and gas leases, but they're not actually named in the document. So I'm just wondering if they should be added.
So the attorney that was writing the letter was indicating that he was not giving an opinion of title, and that there were 3 oil and gas leases. We don't need him to give an opinion of title because we know that we own the Brown Bridge Quiet area. The title work has been done, long been done. And there are, in fact, 3 oil and gas leases that are out there, and we know that already, too. So we don't need this attorney to tell us that. He was just reviewing the documents related to the request to transfer those leases from one operator to the operator that has now purchased them. So I'm completely satisfied with that aspect.
That's fine then.
Okay. Do we have other questions or a motion?
I move that the City Commission approves the consent to assignment from Arbor to Reefworks LLC, and further that the mayor and city clerk execute the necessary documents to accomplish the consent to assignment, with such documents subject to approval as to form by the city attorney and as to substance by the city manager.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioners Shaw and Anderson. Any other discussion on this item? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we'll go on to old business, number 1, which is consideration of appointing Benjamin Marentet as interim city manager. We all had a very robust conversation last week here at our meeting, and Mr. Marentet was approached by our city attorney to see if he would be interested in serving as interim, and agreed to be considered. So at this point, what I'd like to do, and Lauren, I'll let you say a couple words too, but if I'd invite Mr. Marentet maybe up to the dais here next to the deputy city clerk, and I know he would like to say a couple things, but also I didn't know, Lauren, if you had anything else you wanted to throw in about process or anything like that.
Not at this time. I did, as we discussed last week, have a discussion with all of our senior staff at our staff meeting on Tuesday morning about whether anybody else would be interested in being the interim city manager and stepping up for that role. Nobody raised their hand. I think that it seemed to me that staff was very comforted by the idea of Mr. Marentet coming forward, and they were satisfied to have that move forward and not themselves step up for that consideration. So unless there are any questions, I don't have anything else to add.
And I just wanted to highlight from our discussion to this week, in the past, sometimes we've had interims come in and left a little open towards the end. As of right now, there is a July 31st, 2026 date on this, which would give the new commission time to be seated. January, sorry. I don't know what month I actually just said, because I don't know where I am, what month I'm in. But that is what we're putting out there. That'll give a little bit of time for the new commission, whoever might be on it, to be seated, and some time to form process of what they'd like to do. So that's a little bit of a change. Other than that, it's a lot of what we discussed last week. Proposed salary would be the same as the current city manager was, or the previous city manager was making. And Mr. Marentet has also asked for some periodic reviews to check in with the commissions as they're seated to make sure that everybody is in good communication. So with that, I'm actually going to let Mr. Marentet, I know he wanted to address the public and the commission. He also included something in our packet. So I'll hand it over to him, and then I'll open up to our commissioners too.
Thank you very much. I will say I've got more than just a few things to say. I've got about 20 minutes, and I think it's stuff that's really important for me to say, and I hope you'll bear with me. I just want to say good evening to the City Commission, city staff, community members, and anyone watching. Because I'm very excited and a touch nervous, I decided to refer to notes more than I might typically. I've got a lot to say, but I promise it won't take longer than 20 minutes, as I just said. Highlights of my sentiments this evening will be shared with every member of city staff, including temporary and seasonal employees, and also with our interns. To say that I'm grateful to be here talking with you about serving as interim city manager for Traverse City is a tremendous understatement. Traverse City is an extraordinary place, and the chance to serve as your chief administrator, leading with focus, openness, respect, kindness, clarity, empathy, and a mindset of possibilities would be deeply rewarding and what you can all and everyone can expect of me. My approach to serving as interim city manager, unless you tell me otherwise, will not be to simply serve as caretaker. While some decisions and direction may need to wait until a permanent city manager is appointed, I intend to work diligently on key issues and be highly engaged and very visible. I will focus on important areas which we will discuss together here in the near future. But one of the things that I will talk quite a bit about is developing objectives and key results based on Traverse City's first ever strategic action plan, which was adopted by the City Commission just last month. Of perhaps the greatest importance in my mind, I will also invest significant effort on our organizational culture, which I will talk extensively about. While not, I want to say this, I want to work to calibrate with the staff, the City Commission, and this community on how we work together going forward as Team Traverse City. I'd like to talk a little bit about the expectations I have of myself and of others. Our city government has a devoted, professional, and caring staff. And as I shared in my cover letter, you can expect me to champion an environment centered on respect, continued development, authentic communication, appreciation, and accountability, and a culture that is firmly rooted in feedback, regardless of your spot on the city sphere. From me, you can expect openness, respect, curiosity, appreciation, humility, tact, empathy, follow-through, candor, and clarity, and you can expect total professionalism with a little bit of silly mixed in. The community can expect me to be, as I said, fully engaged and focused on equitable solutions, inclusivity, and excellence in delivery of public services. You can expect me to have difficult conversations in person, one-on-one, or with any group, and anyone who knows me knows that I approach them with openness, a desire to understand, and a capacity to be changed. I expect city staff to routinely look for ways to innovate, to collaborate regardless of department or rank, to help each other be better through tactful yet sincere feedback, to be respectful, to be careful, thoughtful stewards of city resources, and for us to have fun at work. Let's all help each other. To the city staff, I expect you to always treat the City Commission, your coworkers, and anyone with whom you interact with respect, honesty, to celebrate success, and to approach your work with what is in the best interest of the city that we serve. I expect you to listen to different points of view with openness and not dismissiveness, and I expect you to be polite. I want you to admit when you need help, and I want you to ask for it. No one, including me, expects you to be able to do everything, and sometimes we'll need to lean on someone else for help. Getting help is never a weakness, it's a strength. I ask and expect you to look for great solutions and to voice them. Well, I know this will routinely be the case because I believe clarity is kindness. I want you to know that in the event you slip in this area, we will address it, and there will be a clear realignment where needed. And whenever possible, you'll be provided with reasonable professional help to get yourself on track. However, in serious circumstances where warranted, if you slip in that fashion, there will be serious consequences. I expect and require that department heads and managers ensure that they and their teams live up to this baseline standard. Lastly, to the employee team, I want you to challenge me. I want you to let me know politely, but with candor, when you think I'm on the wrong track. If you disagree with me about something of importance, let me know. I firmly believe you will find that I appreciate it, and I will respect you so much more if you approach me directly rather than complaining or not giving me the chance to do better. To quote one of my favorite leadership gurus, Brené Brown, from her book, Dare to Lead, let's ditch any echo chambers for real critical thinking. By the way, I mentioned celebrating successes and good work, and I'll do the same. For instance, when I learn that a police officer chooses to not give a parent a citation because they didn't have their child in a car seat, but rather purchased a car seat from their own personal funds for that parent, I will celebrate that. As another example, when the city clerk's office team, on top of everything else that they do, runs 3 elections in a calendar year, including a presidential election with unprecedented challenges, and then has a post-election audit that receives a 100% score, you better believe you will get cheers from me. Every single department has employees who do things that should be encouraged through celebration, and we will do that. I want our city employees to have a healthy balance between work commitments and our personal lives. I will be working with our HR department, and they already know this, to introduce policies that genuinely support balance, including flexibility in working arrangements, while maintaining accountability for the jobs we're hired to do with care and commitment. This will become a high priority for our HR department, because if we don't have employees with good mental health, happiness, joy, and balance, most importantly, they suffer as human beings, but also importantly, our ability to come to work fresh and ready to give our best is hampered. We will work to have a workplace that attracts the best talent we can reasonably afford and to keep that talent. We will work to create a workplace that is centered around the fact that there can be and is tremendous joy in public service. To the City Commission, I ask that no member of the City Commission ever make direct personal criticism of staff members in public. I certainly understand and encourage you to fulfill your duty to think critically about work, and at times that you will need to publicly disagree with members of the city employee team. And I understand that you may need to express that disagreement, but please keep it at that. Of course, you should always ask questions aimed at driving transparency, better decision-making, fact-finding, and what is in the public's interest. City commissioners, if you have any concerns with members of city staff, every single one of them, except for the city attorney and her assistant, ultimately reports to me. And I need to, and I want to hear about it. I'll work professionally to address any concerns that need to be addressed. I promise you that. If you find that I don't do so adequately, your issue is with me, not with the staff person. I need you to be professional, yet very candid with me, and to hold me accountable. Finally, you are our organization's board of directors, and what you say matters and has the opportunity to inspire an environment of excellence. My hope is that you will compliment city staff and express appreciation routinely when they deserve it. And I hope you'll tell me when you see staff doing great things. I ask that the community raise issues of concern, share ideas respectfully, engage with city staff, and thank them when they've done something good. We all need appreciation. I ask that members of our communities treat our staff with respect, appreciation, and kindness. I ask that community members make me aware when they see city staff doing something great, and that they let me know if they ever think any member of city staff might not be addressing an issue adequately or appropriately. This is a new day for Traverse City government, and I am moved by and pumped for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I've served as city clerk for Traverse City for over 13 years, and I've served this community for 25, and at the end of this month, it'll be 26. I can't believe that. I've also fairly recently completed an exceptional public leadership development program over the course of 6 years at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government with a focus on strategic leadership and negotiations, or as they like to say, negotiations. I have a master's degree with a concentration in leadership and finance, and I've consulted and advised a number of communities, states, and in some cases on national issues. I say this with humility and with a genuinely grateful heart. But I also say it to demonstrate that I've been fortunate to have extraordinary experiences to study, learn, observe, and see maybe what works and maybe what doesn't work. But I certainly have a lot to learn, and I am eager for that. This morning I got to learn some really interesting things about water wells. And with this being a new day for Traverse City government, I want the City Commission, the staff, and this community to take a breath, to reset. Please, please treat each other with respect. Please, please operate from a default place that people are good people and they usually have good intentions. Please recognize that we're all passionate about this amazing place, and we may have very strong opposing views about its future. That's a good thing. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings with unique experiences, and we all matter. It's a good thing that people care so much. Please remember and keep center in your minds the humanity we all share. No one is perfect. You can't expect the impossible from those sitting up here, and you can't expect the impossible from staff or the public. I'd like to talk also about something I'm very excited to get more deeply involved in implementing with you, and that's our city's first ever strategic action plan, which was unanimously adopted by this city commission just last month. When I interviewed for the city manager position in 2023, I advocated heavily for this, and I have served on the core staff leadership team for this effort since the beginning, along with Assistant City Manager Deb Allen, Communications Director Colleen Pavelio, and the former city manager. You'll be hearing tonight from David at Future IQ, who developed this plan based on robust and extensive community input. This plan is a gift to guide the city's efforts and resources with clarity and purpose. I asked David at Future IQ to include in his proposal, aimed at translating this plan into action, to work with us to develop not goals and objectives, but objectives and key results, known as OKRs. We need to ditch the goals and objectives framework. Excuse me. OKRs are designed to improve focus, alignment, and performance across organizations, from boards to executive leadership, middle management, and non-management contributors. OKRs are better than goals and objectives because they emphasize measurable progress, not just activity. And that's where the transformation begins. We'll be talking a lot more on that at future city commission meetings, and I shared this approach that I'm recommending with the leadership team last week. And I think they're looking forward to this kind of clarity. If you approve his proposal, David is also going to assist us in developing a framework for department-level work plans that align with the strategic plan based on your OKRs. There's so much potential to inspire and instill organization-wide focus and alignment, and these will become the North Star for our work. While any new members of the City Commission will not be seated during this process, I hope that City Commission candidates will participate in these public meetings. Shifting gears, let me talk about what has changed for me since 2023. You all know that in 2023, the City Commission conducted an extensive national search with a professional recruiter for city manager, and you had 77 applicants from several states. The process included candidates applying, answering initial written questions, participating in video interviews, with finalists ultimately interviewing in front of the City Commission, having one-on-one interviews with each member of the commission, being interviewed by the entire department head team, and then participating in a public open house. Department heads then each submitted their opinion on the candidates anonymously to the search firm, who reported the results to the City Commission. I learned when it was stated at the September 11th, 2023 City Commission meeting that I was the candidate who was recommended by all of the department heads. I also learned that of those community members completing a survey on the candidates, that I had the widest support. Following all of that, I was unanimously chosen by the City Commission. And ultimately, after much anguish, I declined the position 9 days later. At the time, once I was faced with the true reality of serving in this role, I was deeply conflicted. I felt that I really wanted to continue serving as city clerk. Sorry. There was also a deep part of me that didn't feel ready, and I was scared. As someone who's formally tested emotional intelligence shows it's in the 98th percentile, I was puzzled that I didn't know why. To say that it broke my heart to turn it down is true. And while I waffled some, I knew it was the right thing to do for our employees, the city commission, the community, and for me. I took a couple of weeks off of work to begin healing that broken heart. And I want to thank so many members of the community that showed compassion in acknowledging the strength it took to make that decision. Thank you, Traverse City, for the grace. Having said that, because I have wanted to find a role where I could elevate my opportunity for impact through public service, I worked with a professional coach and other professional advisors for nearly 2 years to examine what kept me from accepting the position in September 2023. The reality is, besides loving my city clerk position, was that I'm an extremely hard worker and devoted, and I can work too hard. I had an issue with drawing boundaries between work and taking time for myself. My father was such a workaholic that he died 5 days shy of his 61st birthday 9 years ago from literally working to death. What I'm really saying is I've seen multiple city managers, not just here in TC, but across the country, suffer greatly because there weren't effective boundaries. Please give me just a minute. I have carefully developed boundaries to allow me to confidently take on this role. These boundaries are meant to ensure that I can serve in this capacity, hopefully for a really, really long time, bringing needed long-term stability and leadership, and to help this community and our excellent staff achieve some great things for several years. These boundaries include me shifting in the following ways. Besides the very heavy workload in general, the email activity can be nonstop, and I will rarely check my email on weekends or in late evenings. I will have plenty of other work that will require my time and focus in off hours, and if something is truly urgent, please text or call. When I take a vacation respectfully, and I say this kindly, I would like to not hear from you. And I would like for you to not hear from me, unless there's an extreme situation. Same for the staff. We have an incredible assistant city manager, Deb Allen, who I will ask to make decisions that need to be made while I'm gone. Speaking of vacations, I had a 2-week vacation scheduled starting the first week of August before this all transpired, which I've pushed out a week to get some important things moving. But I am going to take my 2-week vacation, and it'll begin August 11th, and when I get back, I'll be refreshed. Number 3, I will embrace remote work, including for myself, while maintaining in-person presence the vast majority of the time. 4, because of the fact that this position has an intense schedule and demands, often starting in early mornings and late into the evening, I will make time at whatever time of the day works best, balancing the needs of the city to take a break, to run, swim laps like I did just before this meeting, to relatively calm my nerves, walk or bike. This is essential for my mental health, and it will also help me process the pressing issues of the day. After working through these necessary boundaries and giving myself permission to truly accept them, I ask that you only vote to approve my appointment if you can respect these boundaries. Also, deeply factoring into my decisions to step into this role is this. As some know, while I made 100% recovery, at the end of last year, I became infected with a life-threatening virus that the team at Munson Medical Center had never seen before. During my hospital stay for a couple of days, my sweetheart and I were facing the reality that this virus could take my life or alter it forever. If it had progressed just a little bit further, it would have attacked my brain. I have made a complete recovery and have a new, profound focus on how I would like to spend my energy in this life. And that brings me to this. As I've thought about it, well, I didn't realize the City Commission was going to want to have an interim city manager through January. Rather than immediately moving toward finding a permanent replacement, I like the idea. It gives us a chance to, if I may respectfully characterize it this way, date before we both decide if we want to get married. It is my deep hope that things turn out in such a way that we stay married for many years. This is to say that I anticipate I will desire to be the next permanent city manager for this wonderful city. If not, we've tried it on for size, and I won't feel as though I've let this community or staff team down if I was appointed permanent city manager and then not too long into the future realized it wasn't working well. Along the lines of dating, that is why I asked for my proposed employment agreement to contain a mandatory provision that there be a closed session every 2 months during this proposed 6-month arrangement so the city commission and I can have a candid, clear conversation about the work and ensure alignment. That is how we will be successful. In closing, there are so many people to thank, but I want to specifically thank a few in this public forum. Deputy City Clerk Sarah Lutz, who is more than ready and able to serve as interim city clerk. Sarah's a rock star. She's a wonderful soul. She's bright. She's a good person. And she also has the support of the great team in the city clerk's office and the entire organization. Assistant City Manager Deborah Allen, you are a smart class act, and you're a gift. I stand confident and ready to step into this role because we will work in partnership alongside each other, and I cherish your experience and advice. The entire leadership team, your heart for service, teamwork, and resilience during both turbulent and non-turbulent times is commendable. The wider employee team, including our interns, I believe in you, and you give me confidence that together we can do great things. Several friends from around the country and family who have followed my journey and are watching this meeting right now, including several in the city that's closest to my heart, which is Palm Springs, California. Last but not least, the love of my life and my husband, Matt Turner. Thank you for supporting me in anything I want to do. Matt, I will honor our wedding vows and ensure there's always time for our love. And I will keep the boundaries I outlined tonight. And I will insist on them with any future city commission I work for. And I've got just one more minute. I said to the leadership team last week that I'd be honored to serve alongside and lead such a wonderful group of incredible humans. I'm ready to hit the ground running tomorrow if the City Commission wants to give me the honor to do so. Thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity and for this life, and I welcome any comments, reflections, or questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benjamin. I feel like we all kind of want to applaud and take a moment here. So we have the awkwardness, I guess you could say, of this being a formal meeting and that there will be a motion and that there will be questions. So I really appreciate you coming with a very, not unexpected from you, robust statement of and outlining where you're at and where you're coming from. And I know everybody in the public appreciates that too, of where we're at. So I just want to outline for the commission right now, we're going to allow some questions for Benjamin if you want, or any comments. We then on the next, if he is approved, our next item is making Sarah Lutz our acting city clerk. That point, we can take a moment and discuss general procedure if we want to, if anybody has questions, but I want to keep Benjamin's time right now to Benjamin and us making the motion about him and his duty first. So if anybody has questions or comments, please feel free right now. Or just make a motion. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the City Commission appoints Benjamin Marantet as interim city manager effective July 22nd, 2025, subject to Section 35 of the City Charter, and authorizes the mayor and deputy city clerk to execute the interim city manager employment agreement with Benjamin Marantet as described in the packet materials for the July 21st, 2025 meeting, with such agreement subject to approval, so to form by the city attorney and as to substance by the acting city manager.
All right, I'll give that to Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. All right, is there any other comments or questions or anything at this time? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I appreciate everything that Mr. Marantet shared. I think moving forward, whether it's with Mr. Marantet, certainly hopefully with the next city commission, working with a permanent city manager, that the city commission, works to be a better employer. We, the 7 that sit up here, are the employer of the city manager and the city attorney. And I think there's opportunity for, whether it's this body and or the next body, to work with the city manager, whatever that means. We, as the employer, probably need the equivalent of an executive coach to help this body. I might not be part of it, but help this body get the most out of the employee. Just as Mr. Marantet said that he's had an executive coach to help him strive to be the best he can be and get the most out of his direct reports. So it's the same idea, and it goes along with the check-ins that he mentioned, and maybe there's more than check-ins. There's certainly plenty of folks in our community, one of which is here tonight for a later agenda item, that are well experienced in this realm. So I don't pretend to know what the particulars might be, but I think it would behoove the city commission to be mindful of that, and as we plan for the search for a permanent city manager, to keep all of that in mind. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions from the commission?
I just want to say I love that.
I will say that, and funnily, because this was not at all in the cards, Mr. Marantet has helped us through our process many times over the years of doing the reviews, and always been striving to evolve. And I know that's one thing that has come out of working with Becky Ewing this year, is some recommendations of how future commissions should go forward too, that we'll be noting, including periodic check-ins with beyond just once a year, and some other things that will hopefully help everyone become more successful in these relationships that we have that are very, very public and very, very important. So, so thank you for that, Tim, for bringing that up. With that, I guess we'll have any other public comment on this. Don't want to forget that part. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? As of tomorrow, welcome, City Manager Marantet.
Thank you for the unanimous support. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And I just wanted to let everybody know, I guess so that it's not confused, I did purposely ask that this be moved to number 1 on old business so that we could put that vote out there and have Mr. Marantet going into this meeting knowing where he stood going into tomorrow. We are gonna, I did ask him, unless anybody objects, to stay seated up here the entire time. While he is not official till tomorrow, he will be implementing a lot of what we're talking about here, and also will be leading the staff meeting tomorrow, I'm assuming. And so I figured having him up here with our other great leadership would be helpful as we move forward. So he will not be getting up, he'll be sitting there, and didn't want anybody to note that as an oddity. So one more up here tonight. With that, now we have a vacancy for city clerk. And Sarah Lutz has graciously agreed to take that role on, and we know we've had her fill in various times and always really been helpful, and comes very highly recommended by the previous city clerk now. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead, or we can take a motion.
I would like to, if I may, jump
Yeah.
in. I want to say just a couple things.
Sure.
Not as long. Sarah Lutz has got all the right experience for this role. As I put in my cover memo, she served as deputy city clerk for just over 4 years, and prior to that, she was chief deputy county clerk for Grand Traverse County for 8.5 years. She recently obtained the certified municipal clerk designation bestowed by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. She was also selected in 2023 by her peers across the state of Michigan as Michigan's Deputy City Clerk of the Year. She's well versed in the functions of the city clerk's office and has the full support of the team. Sarah will also be receiving an increase in compensation to acknowledge her additional duties. and I've spoken with her, and she has my support to obtain any necessary temporary staffing assistance to help during this transitional period and ensure that she's got the resources she needs, and you'll soon be seeing an approval on your part of who she recommends to serve as her interim deputy city clerk. And I would just be remiss, Sarah, if I didn't say that it's an honor for me to recommend you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Benjamin. Ringing on top of ringing. We appreciate that. Heather, you had raised your hand.
Well, I was just going to say that over the year and a half that I've been here, I have so enjoyed working with Sarah Lutz. Not only is she smart and capable and resourceful and efficient, but she always has a smile on her face and some good humor. And I would be honored to make the recommendation that the resolution approving interim, yes, this is right, that the resolution approving interim city manager Benjamin Marentet's appointment of Sarah Lutz as interim city clerk effective immediately be approved, and further that the city commission certifies the signature of Ms. Lutz on all city financial accounts as the co-authorizer on all financial disbursements of the city of Traverse City and Traverse City Light and Power.
Support.
All right, we got resounding support on that. I'll give that to Jackie. All right, any other comments at this time? Go ahead, Mitch.
Just to thank Sarah for going above and beyond her duties, including yesterday when I was walking along US 31, giving you a ride most of the way to Bel Air. So thank you.
Okay.
It's not often I pick up somebody on the side of the road. But I happen to recognize him.
Such a kind soul.
Well, and I'll add to the praise a bit of appreciating Ms. Lutz, not just in her work, but also has helped me out of many a tech jam and helped me discover some new useful tools. So thank you for that. And I join in the praise for her of being very, I won't say bubbly because that's dismissive, but very cheerful and always a pleasure to run into. And I know that's contagious among the staff as well. So with that, I'll open up. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, now we'll move on to our discussion of the strategic plan. And Deb, I think you're gonna, oh, sorry, we have Sarah's, speaking of tech, Sarah's getting some things loaded up, but we'll have Deb kind of do some intro, but this will be virtual, so bear with us.
So as a follow-up to I just have to say, I'm really happy, really happy. As a follow-up to the City Commission's adoption of the strategic plan in June, we have developed a high-level overview of our current status with input from city staff and partnerships with Future IQ. A dashboard has been created to track progress over 24 action items tied to the plan's 6 strategic pillars. This tool reflects our collective work to date and provides an ongoing source of transparency and accountability. Tonight, we'll discuss a proposed matrix dashboard, providing a high-level overview of where we stand today with the strategic action plan across the 6 strategic pillars and 24 action plans. The goal is to move from tracking to implementation, integrating this process into future budget allocations and the CIP development. As part of these next steps, we want to develop departmental work plan assignments with the strategic action plan and establish a clear tracking mechanism to ensure ongoing transparency and accountability, which Benjamin had shared earlier. To further our discussion, I'd like to again welcome David Burrell with Future IQ to review their upcoming proposal in detail and answer any questions from our commission. David, welcome back.
Good evening, everybody.
Take it away.
In the pack which you've received, you'll see that we've developed a draft dashboard document. I think it was a very natural kind of final piece for the strategic action plan, because what became quite apparent in our final discussions with you as the commissioners was the sort of the new ideas that came from the community, but the need to better align the budget and the priorities and the focus in the city with those emerging city sort of aspirations that came from the stakeholder engagement. So the dashboard was an initial attempt to sort of look at where the match fits at the moment. So what were the priorities that were established by the community, and then through input from the department heads, where did they see the emphasis currently being? This dashboard, I have to say, is fairly subjective at this point. It's intended to be a starting point, and obviously it only deals with what you might think of the more sort of discretionary components that were identified in the strategic action planning process. There are obviously the functions of government that are sort of more enduring and underpin that, things like infrastructure and water and public safety and so on. So I think where we're at now, the point and the proposal I was asked to prepare by your staff was to say, well, how do we now marry those two things together, this set of community aspirations with the function and the current alignment of the city resources. So the process that we've developed is a 4-month process to really walk through that sort of exploring the alignment, better understanding your interpretation of those priorities that have been set by the community or suggested by the community. And as Benjamin said, developing objectives and key actions so that we start to get that very strong alignment between the budget allocation and the operational priorities in the city being guided by the community-driven strategic action planning process. The proposal we've put in front of you includes a lot of interaction with you, both collectively as a commission, but individually. It will have obviously public components, which is an opportunity for candidates perhaps to also participate. But really it's a 4-month process to sort of take where we ended with the strategic action planning process and then move that through to a framework that aligns your future investments and your future direction to your city manager and staff, so that it reflects the community process. The rest of the materials there in front of you. So Deborah, if that's enough of an introduction to that, happy to take questions or clarifications.
So we'll open up to the commission. Are there any questions of David based on what's in the packet, or? Go ahead, Heather.
Well, I have a question about, but it's more directed at the city commission than it is at David. I should bring that up right now. So I fully support having us go further with this additional mediation, I guess you would call it, this alignment between what we want and what we can do. And I also think that with this recent staff leadership change, it's a good thing to have that mediation happen also. But I'm a little concerned about the new commission coming in. I mean, we're already a month off on this schedule, right? It was supposed to start in July. We're already done with July. So I'm just wondering about breaking it up, having maybe steps 1 and 2, or step 1 with the current commission, and then steps 2 and 3 after the new commission comes in. I mean, we have delayed selecting an interim city manager or a permanent city manager until after the election. So it kind of seems like the same situation. And I asked you up here, those of you who are leaving in November, how would you feel if you were a candidate running right now, hoping to be seated up here in November, and having this whole process happen before you're seated? I know that perhaps there's the opportunity to participate during, before the election happens, but maybe it's not. I'm just throwing it out here to see what you think about this.
Heather, I appreciate your questions, and I want to pin them and come right back, but also because we have David here, to address, we are a month off, and he is presenting this to us as something we could do over the next couple months, but where does that ring for you, David, as far as, potentially breaking it up, or, thoughts on where we are, if we're behind? Is that something that can be caught up? Where you're kind of at with that too, and then we can go to the commission too with Heather's questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually think it's a really good comment, and obviously there is always that sensitivity of trying to sort of move a planning process through making recommendations right on the eve of an election. I do think, though, we could reasonably get through step 1 and perhaps half of step 2, and then and do the work of developing the thinking, because I think there's 2 parts. There's a lot of institutional knowledge sitting at the table there as commissioners, and I think capturing that's really important. I think there's a lot of work to do with staff to have them start to think about alignment of departmental budgets. And obviously this proposal, when it was written, we were anticipating perhaps an earlier consideration, but events have occurred. I do think it would be easy to stretch this out and perhaps do a lot of that development work and then have a session with an incoming commission that would be picking up the last parts of step 2 and then moving through the final recommendation. So I think it's a balance of sort of bringing in that new thinking, but also capturing the institutional knowledge of the commission, because you have all been very involved in the development of the strategic action plan with the community. So I think there is a sweet spot in the middle there.
Okay, go ahead, Jackie.
Just perhaps another way to look at that, I'm always sensitive to the idea that the CIP and the budget come around every year. Every year we have a chance to align our priorities with our spending, and that perhaps by taking some initial steps in that direction now, bringing on board the new commission in November, they have a chance to find their feet, and by March of 26, we're back into the CIP cycle again. So, you know, I think our tackling some of that now makes sense in terms of our responsibility for outcomes, for the decisions that we have made, and modifying those decisions if necessary based on what we decide our objectives and results should be. So I kind of like the idea of do it now, you know, from where we are today, and then with the understanding that in another 8 months, we're going to get another crack at it. We're going to be updating. We'll be you know, seeing where we are. So I would like to do more sooner.
Yeah.
But that's my personal bias.
And I would say and I agree with Heather, I appreciate Heather raising the point, I appreciate Jackie sharing too. And just to kind of lay it out a little, part of the reason why we're waiting to do the interim city manager is the search itself takes months to hire the firm, create the RFP, and put the search out and start the interviews. So I think we've heard a willingness from the commission, and you know, you mentioned it yourself, Heather, I'm not trying to say you didn't, last week, of we want to keep some of this progress going of the work we've been doing. So I appreciate David kind of weighing in with, well, there's a certain amount we think we can do right now, and then there's a certain amount that can probably be tackled again as a second wave, I guess you would say, after the election. And so I guess my question would be, if we're interested in proceeding forward, but acknowledging that, would that be alter the motion in any way? I would look at our attorney and David or anybody like that. Do we feel like that's something we want to keep the motion as it is and push forward as much as we can? And I'm seeing some head nodding on that. Okay. And then I was going to say, or do we need to change that? So go ahead, Heather.
So, yeah, I just have a question. Since we're already a month behind, do we have time to complete steps 1 and 2? Because I don't think we have time to complete step 3, right?
No, and David was just saying 1 and 2 probably, right? Go ahead, David, if you want to.
Yes, I mean, we offer a fixed price, so there'd be no implication from a budget point of view to extend that. And I do think you could go probably right through to almost the final step of step 2 before the election. And I actually think, I mean, I put together a 4-month proposal because of a sense of, you know, maintaining momentum. I do think that there's some parts there of spending a bit more time with staff, and I think Benjamin's comments earlier would really highlight that there's a lot of value perhaps in spending a bit more time with the departmental heads, thinking about the alignment of their work and how they can implement and the sort of results and actions that they'd be looking at, you know, tying into the strategic action plan. So I think it would make a lot of sense and would have no implication on the proposal other than the timeline, and there's no cost implication on extending that.
Okay, that's great. So no cost implications. So with some of those points clarified, I'd either take more questions or a motion to get us opening that up a little. Go ahead, Jackie, and then.
I'm ready to make a motion,
Yeah,
but if you have a comment.
No.
Okay. I recommend that the mayor and city clerk execute an amendment to the agreement with Future IQ, Inc. for professional services to include to support the development and adoption of the new 5-year objectives and key results in the amount not to exceed $20,000, with such agreement subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with funds to come from the city commission budget.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioners Anderson and Stanley. Now, do we have any other questions or any comments, further comments on this? I appreciate the clarification, David, of how this is kind of a one price fits all for the process, however long it takes. So thank you for that. With that, is there, I can't talk, sorry. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll be seeing you soon, David. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. All right. So next, oh, go ahead. We'll give a tech moment here. But while it looks like we've got ready to set up for the next thing, I'll just tee this up with, our next item is a discussion. It's a request from myself, but also Commissioner Shaw and Stanley for us to consider funding for Jubilee House. This is something that has been brought up as we've been kind of looking at our continuum of care for our unhoused and some of our housing issues that came up. While I do have the right to put anything on the agenda as I see fit, I did appreciate that commissioners were willing to sign up as well, because I think this is a bigger conversation that we wanted everybody to have here. So we know that Jubilee House provides the day shelter currently and has been stepped into that role majorly since 2020. And so I'll hand it over now, I think, to the podium, unless anybody else needed to, from staff wanted to comment, to kind of give us a little overview of what's going on right now.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Derek Quinn. I am the Assistant Priest for Outreach at Grace Episcopal Church. In my role at Grace, my responsibility is coordinating all of our outreach ministries and making sure that they have the resources that they need in order to function. And there are a lot of needs that our ministries have grown into needing over the last couple of years. In particular, Jubilee House, which has expanded its operations considerably since 2022. And I'm going to go over briefly why we're here asking for an additional just over $100,000 from you to make sure that we can make it to the end of the year. Know that this is not our only outreach ministry. We also do have a food pantry that is out giving supplemental groceries to people twice a week, a community meal that serves a free lunch twice a week, and we also help Afghan families who helped our country when we were occupying Afghanistan settle and become some of our newest neighbors. So we do all of those things in addition to having Jubilee House, Traverse City's only dedicated day shelter for those experiencing homelessness. How did we get to here? I think it's relevant to go through some of the history briefly so that you have a sense of how we got to this place. During COVID, of course, we had to shut down because people couldn't gather in a space. And as we came back, we found out that our volunteer pool had been reduced. There were some people who were just not ready to come back to volunteering. And of course, we lost some people to COVID. And so that meant that we were sort of at a place of trying to redesign what does it look like to be Jubilee House. At the time, we were open 4 days a week for 4 hours a day, and we did that with a pool of just 12 volunteers at the time. And the ministry cost under $20,000 to operate per year at that time. With our partners, we started to realize, though, that that wasn't going to be enough for the long term. And in fact, then Mayor Lewis brought many of the stakeholders together and asked us to design a way so that people could have somewhere to go 24/7 during the coldest months of the year. And what we decided was that Central United Methodist would expand their breakfast hours ever so slightly. Jubilee House would expand our hours to cover all of the day, and Safe Harbor, in addition to doing overnight duty, would also become the day shelter on the weekends. And we would try that as a pilot program for 2 years. And we did do that. In version 1.0 of this, all of those things happened, and coincidentally at the same time, the police department hired a dedicated officer for the North Boardman neighborhood, as well as hiring its first social worker, which all went into trying to care for those who are unhoused and most in need. We anticipated for that program that we would need $30,000 to hire a part-time staff person. Safe Harbor at the time knew that they were going to need $12,000 to hire their weekend daytime staff. And we said that we would do the people part, and the city at the time agreed that you all would do the money part. You agreed to find the $84,000 it would take to do the 2-year pilot project, and in fact you did. You found grants from many local organizations, as well as putting up quite a considerable amount of money from your own budget to help with this process. Grace also happened to find two grants that were helpful for us in operations. The Bishop Whittemore Foundation, an Episcopal foundation in Western Michigan that helps with outreach ministries and building funds, as well as 100 Women Who Care of Traverse City, who wanted to see us get new furniture for the house, and they were generous to give us a little over $11,000 to replace all of the living room furniture so that people have comfortable chairs to sit on when they come to see us. What we didn't anticipate, in addition to needing that $84,000, was just how much our need was going to grow. When we started the program, we had an average of 38 sign-ins per day by guests. In 2024, last year, we had 80 sign-ins, and so far this year, we're averaging 102 per day. So the ministry has grown not just double, but more like triple, and so we are acknowledging that it takes more to make that happen.
Would you mind, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second, would you define what sign-ins are?
Sure. When a guest comes to Jubilee House anytime between 10 and 2, we ask them to sign in the very first time they come to the house in that period of time. Now, people might go outside to smoke a cigarette, they might go wander to the park, they might do anything that has them leave the house, but if they come back before 2 o'clock, they've only signed in once. If after 2 o'clock they come back in, they do sign in again. And part of the reason we do that is our volunteers change over at around 2 o'clock. And so it's tough for the morning volunteers to pass along to the evening volunteers exactly everyone who's been there. And so since our volunteers know all of our community very well, they're going to recognize by sight if someone's going in and out and make sure that they aren't signing in multiple times. So that very closely approximates the number of actual people that are coming in per day. It is possible that someone might be counted twice if they come in the morning, leave, and come back in again in the afternoon. Some unexpected consequences that we had from all of this. We didn't expect with that kind of growth that we were going to need more than a half-time staff person, and we didn't expect with the way that things grew that things would become unsafe not having trained staff around. We thought we could continue to operate mostly with volunteers, but we found out fairly quickly that that really wasn't the case. But since we had received more money than was originally required for that pilot program, we were able to hire an additional half-time staff person, but we recognized that that wasn't even really enough. And so we proposed in spring of 2024 that we actually expand to a sort of version 2.0 of the program and hire a full-time director. We met with Mayor Shamrow at the time, city manager, and actually city clerk at the time was also in that meeting. And we got the go-ahead that you all wanted us to continue operations the way that they had been and agreed that it was necessary for us to hire that full-time staff person. We agreed again to continue to do the people part of it, and we got an agreement from the city senior staff or the senior leadership that you all would again help us with the money portion. We also agreed to start helping with the money portion. We thought we would be able to find $30,000 worth of grants, and we got a commitment that $161,000 for staffing per year would be found for us so that we could continue our process and hire that full-time.
Derek, can you pull the mic a little closer to you? I just got a message saying people can't hear you.
Absolutely. Sorry, I thought it was close enough. My bad. So with that in mind, we went ahead with version 2.0. We went ahead and hired that full-time director, and that has been working wonderfully. To have someone who not only coordinates the other staff, but the volunteers, and assures continuity from shift to shift, so that when things happen, say on a Monday, everyone on Tuesday knows that that happened and they get direction from the director. The director's also taken on all the responsibilities for inventory management. As mentioned, with that many people coming in the house, we have a lot of turnover of supplies that we never anticipated. And Hannah, our director, has been wonderful at being able to handle all of that. Our 2 half-time outreach specialists continue to be there to support our volunteers and take direction from the director, and doing things like implementing policies to ensure that we have a safe community and that everyone is being good neighbors to each other while they're with us. So what does it cost to make that happen? Again, it takes $161,000 in staffing costs, and that is really the cost that we're asking you to continue to help us pay for. Grace is going to continue to cover through our own budget and through granting partners what it takes to do the rest of the operation. And just to give you an idea of what that includes, we do give out a number of distributable items, including temporary bus passes to people who are in need of transportation assistance. We give out emergency clothing. We give out batteries to power all of the various devices that people need, and often they can't access plugs, especially overnight, and so batteries are a critical need for many devices that people use, especially if they're living outside. And we do have some limited food that we are able to give out for people who come and are most in need of food. We also have, of course, the house to operate, which comes with its own costs, and you will notice that our building costs are fairly high, and we recognize that. We are putting to use an over 100-year-old home for what, frankly, has now become a commercial purpose, and so we recognize that there's going to have to be a longer discussion about what it's going to take to continue that operation and whether or not it can continue in that place. But for now, we've got to maintain the structure that we have, and that is somewhat difficult with over 100 people coming into a single-family home. All told, our ministry costs just over $200,000 a year, and we recognize that the largest portion of that is staff, and that is what we are asking for your help with. The good news is that it is working. Having that director has caused calls to the police to continue to decrease. Our neighbors are happier than they have been in years with our operation. I won't say that there are zero complaints, I know better, but I will say that they are really at a minimum. We really have not had as many people saying that they're continually having people in their backyards, in their front yards, disturbing them while they're on their porches, because people have a dedicated place to go and they know that they can be there. And so we know that this process is working, and we want to keep this momentum going. So where are we at? You all have graciously either given or found for us $100,000 of the original $161,000 that we'd hoped to find. It's also been brought to our attention that you think that you may have gotten to the end of the grants you think you can find, and that's okay. We are willing to put in that work as well. So we have now applied for all of the grants that you see on the screen. We've already gotten one. The Schmuckel Family Foundation would generously turned around almost instantly and sent us a $10,000 grant, and we are truly grateful for that support. And I think that's really going to kick off others to realize that this is something that they need to support and help us with. And so we do hope that all of those grants come in, but we aren't the granting agencies. That's up to them, and we know that their processes are ongoing and don't happen immediately. So what we're asking for you to do is give us the runway to let all of those organizations decide if they're going to support us in that way by getting us to the end of the year. And again, that takes a little over $100,000. If for whatever reason that doesn't work for you, we have put in these other timelines. If you would like to go to a different area of the year to help fund us, we appreciate anything that you can give to us. But know that if you're willing to get us to the end of the year, that really gives us the longest runway to figure out how we're going to have a sustainable funding model for the future, and hopefully not have to come back to you in the same way that we're doing right now, because we'll have those funding partners from local grants, and we can get on their cycles so that we know how we're going to be funded in the future. With that, the other thing that I'll mention that, of course, we want to acknowledge is that we are not doing this alone. We know that the task force, the homelessness task force, is continuing their work, and that they are going to also help us figure out a strategy and how we fit into that strategy. We know that the operation is going to change, and we are ready to evolve with that. So we also know that whatever funding we get is not necessarily to fund us permanently. It is to help us get to the next stage in our evolution, and we'd like to continue to be partners in whatever way that looks like. So thank you for the time. Thank you for hearing the request, and I'm truly happy to answer any question I might be able to for you.
Great. Do we have questions to start? Go ahead, Heather.
How do you define an outreach specialist?
Sure. That was a term that we came up with trying to figure out what to call someone who wasn't necessarily a degreed professional with, let's say, a master's degree in social work, but who would help bridge being more than a volunteer, but not necessarily, again, a full-time professional. And so the term we ended up settling on as we looked across homeless shelters throughout the country, the term often used was outreach specialist, and so that's what we settled on.
I have another quick question to follow up. So you're basically spending 75% of your operating expenses on staff costs, personnel costs.
That's correct.
And I know that you've had some trouble staying open sometimes because of lack of volunteer support. Have you closed at all since May? Have you had to close at all since May?
Yes, there have been some days when we've had to close, although most of that has been limited to a single shift, not the entire day. And that has been because reality is everybody is human, and we've had a couple of staff people who had some medical needs that came up urgently, and we didn't have a way to cover those as urgently as we'd wanted to. But as soon as those became known to our volunteers, they stepped up and found a way to help us out. So the few shifts we were closed have only been for very short term.
Well, I was just wondering, but with that amount of money, with 3 people, even though 2 of them are just part-time, you know, if the volunteers can't show up, the 3 people can't handle alone a single shift. That's just impossible with the amount of people amount of guests you have coming, is that?
Yes, so if the House is open with only 3 people, which would be all of our staff present at one time, the House will be open, but we will do reduced services so that they can monitor all of the areas of the House. So we would absolutely be open if all 3 of our staff people were available.
Derek, can I have you go back to the screen with the 2 different costs? Sorry, go forward one more.
That one?
Nope, back one more. Yep, you were right. Sorry.
All right, cool.
Can't trust me today. And I just wanted to kind of, because this was, I brought this forward. I appreciate the commissioners that did this, because I had some conversations with Father Para as well. And this is I'm bringing this forward, viewing this as this is part of our adjustment period, as you well covered as well. Derek, you weren't even part of some of the early conversations because you are new to the team, and that is appreciated. And I know one of your jobs, your duties, is to help kind of look at the opportunities out there for fundings and funding resources and community building. We also know that there have been some changes at Central United Methodist that are changing how they're operating within the community and services they are providing and are looking to expand to provide. And so I just wanted to clarify that part of the reason why I brought this forward is to have this conversation about these different numbers here with the commission, but also acknowledge that I think there was a lot of assistance from former Mayor Richard Lewis of trying to help identify those fundings those first couple of years. And then there's kind of just been a handoff where, I would say nicely, but Grace is learning how to apply for the grants and how to identify them. And as was mentioned, they're reaching out to the task force for help and guidance. They've gotten, staff is guiding them through the CDBG funding application right now. And so that is something independently, I think it was, and I think it was just a vernacular thing, but mentioned that we had done that for you. And the city does not help individual nonprofits apply for grants unless we're a co-sign on, because it's a mutual mission. And I just wanted to say that is where I see you all moving a little bit more independently, and why we're just looking at this next couple of months to either get us through to the fall and or through the end of the year as part of this transition to having year-round shelter and day shelter needed. And then, as you put it yourself, getting the runway cleared so you can start finding alternative sources. I do think that there are some bigger conversations happening out there that will probably potentially even change how you all are operating in the not too distant future, with others stepping up. And so I just wanted to kind of clarify that from where we're coming from the last year and a half or so to today. So just to frame that a little bit for the commission. So any other questions at this time? Go ahead, Heather.
So if we were to fulfill this request, we'd be putting up basically $500,000 annually, but that includes Safe Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't include what the QRT does. It doesn't include the police presence. And it isn't solving the problem at Safe Harbor that there's no dinner. And it isn't solving the problem that the library's having or that the sailing club is having. I mean, we need a permanent, full-time, all-season shelter. This is just another Band-Aid here. But, which we absolutely need to cover this, I don't want to call it a wound, but it is kind of a wound. Have you asked, the county, according to what I heard at the last Safe Harbor meeting, you've got 87% of the homeless are coming from Grand Traverse County and 97 are coming from the five-county area. Supposedly, the Safe Harbor was going to, somebody, I think maybe it was a task force, was going to provide that information to the county. Did anything come to the city that was more detailed about that? But I'm just wondering, have you approached the county at all, or are you just coming to us?
We have not approached the county for general fund money, but what we were asked by the county to do was to begin to pursue their process for use of the opioid settlement dollars, as well as pursue what they're going to do with the cannabis tax fund, knowing that they intend to use some of each of those funds for outreach for things like what we're talking about at Jubilee House. Although they have not finalized any of those processes to the point where we can put an application, we've been going to all of the meetings that they've been holding and trying to be a part of that conversation as part of the public.
Right. And Heather, you've hit the nail on the head too of where I was going with, this is through the end of this year. We have put a lot up this year. Going forward, I think this is where we're looking at the conversations with the county, which for the first time we've seen them take some action, so that's a good sign. But also some of the funds that are available out there. And, we've seen how it gets broken down very kindly. But we also know that sometimes groups have to get creative. So it could be that you're getting food supplied, but that actually is going to help pay for that person down the line too, the staff people. So I appreciate what you're saying there, because I'm acknowledging that too, that this is to get us to where we are today and through to the start of the winter, but it's not a sustainable thing for us to do year in and year out all the time. So I appreciate that. Mitch, go ahead.
Yes, going to the picture on your final slide, there is, in part of your operating expenses, a provision for snow removal as part of the Central United Methodist campus. But one thing that I would like to see is better attention paid to sidewalk clearing. It's not the Jubilee House portion, but there's one spot along Washington Street and another, two spots on Boardman Avenue where it's not when the snowfall initially hits, but when we have a warm-up and some snow sheds off the roof, it ends up onto the sidewalk. And at that time, when the rest of the sidewalk is clear and you have a sudden obstruction, it does make it much more difficult, not just for somebody in a wheelchair, but also people on bicycles, people pushing strollers, etc.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. And no, it is never our intention to leave, snow or ice obstructing the sidewalk. We do have a shared campus at Grace Episcopal Church with Jubilee House, since it is one of our ministries. So we do share some of those costs, and we conservatively estimate that Jubilee House is about 20% of the cost of those. But we also know that volunteers and staff are responsible after our professionals come through to take care of those things. So we will, of course, pay more attention to that in this coming winter. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So because this has been kind of an open discussion, and basically there's two figures that are out there. At this point, unless there's further questions, does someone want to make a motion, or how would we like to move the conversation forward?
It says there's no,
Well, I think that would be where you could say, I'd make the motion that the city authorize a payment of $102,256, or $102,250.
Well,
Oof, I can't talk today, sorry, guys. Yeah.
we actually can't have a motion on that tonight. You could, essentially, our city commission rules say that you have to have 14 days in between introduction of something like this, and when an
Okay.
appropriation can actually be made that's not budgeted.
Okay.
So we could put this on for the August 4th
Okay.
agenda for your approval if you'd like.
Then we could put,
Mayor, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt.
I thought that
And
would be
it'll
easier.
come back as an agreement, because there has to be an agreement to expend the funds, and then that will have all of the terms in it with the reporting that comes back to the city. The city can't just donate funds. So it'll
Right.
be a service agreement.
right. So to providing the services to the city. Sorry, I've neglected to mention that, because that's how we started this back in 2020 in that conversation.
Correct.
So then I guess we'd be looking for a motion that says we would like to introduce with possible enactment in 14 days. And then that is where I think we could identify the amount that we'd like to see, so that the staff can then bring us to the budget, where that comes in the budget and where the funds that is coming out of. Would we like to have that motion so we can get this ball rolling, or not? Can you, I guess, explain what you would need from us to get this moving forward?
I think just simply for the city commission to adopt a motion that directs the city manager to place on the August 4th, 2025 regular meeting a services agreement with Jubilee House in the amount of $102,256.
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
Stanley and Treadwell, thank you. And thank you, staff, for helping us through that while we had those options. Go ahead, Commissioner Warner.
Yeah, it was touched on in earlier comments. If for that meeting, we could be provided by staff working with the community, a breakdown, kind of what's the big picture, especially this current calendar year, but starting whenever, as far as where we as a city have spent money, because there's service agreements typically, whether it's, Safe Harbor, Central United Methodist, or the Episcopal Church or whomever else in our community, Goodwill, what's the big picture as far as money that's gone out for permanent supportive housing, anything that's related to addressing homelessness. I think it would be helpful to know how this is potentially a puzzle piece to fit into that bigger puzzle. Thank you.
Go ahead, Heather.
And I'd like to add, I'd like to hear from the task force about what they've been doing, what their progress is, what's the big picture on, what happens in 2026, what happens in 2027, where's the Community Cares Coalition, where are they fitting into all of this right now? I was at the Safe Harbor meeting, I think that was in June. There was a lot of information in there, and it was well attended. But I think I was the only commissioner. Oh, no, Mitch, you showed up, didn't you? It'd be nice to get a report on that, too, along with the money that was spent.
And that's a good point, Heather. Good point, Tim, but also a good point, Heather, that we haven't had a task force update in a bit. I know we try to do them quarterly usually, but I don't know if we may have missed the mark a little because of certain changes going on. So that's a good point that we'll get rolling too on that. Jackie, you had your hand up?
Just to say that I would appreciate that additional context. My concern at this point really has to do with what happens at the end of October or the end of December. Does this become a series of short-term requests? In which case, I think we need to discuss it in that context. And so understanding the big picture and what else is happening in the community, including any county commitments, would be really important.
Absolutely.
May I respond to that? Our hope is that in fact is not going to be the case. That's one of the reasons why, now that we understand that it's going to be our responsibility to find this funding, that we're going to work tirelessly to find those partners so that we aren't coming back to you again and again. We'll of course always take your support as the city if you want to have a service agreement with us, but we hope to not have to routinely come back to you.
And Father Pear and I had that conversation about a month ago when we got this rolling, and that's why we wanted the two different numbers to see kind of where everything was, but definitely with the intention of making it more sustainable. So go ahead.
And I strongly hope that the task force can help you out with the grant writing.
Agreed.
I feel that is one of the good things that they can do immediately.
I strongly
Fantastic.
support that.
Yeah. Great. Well, we have the motion. Do we have anything else we want to say right now, or I'll open it for public comment? Okay, I'll open it up for public comment then. If anybody would like to approach the podium and make comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission then. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So thank you for that presentation and working with our partners here. And now we will move on to the 11th Street culvert. And Deb, do you want to tee this off?
Sure. So I just wanted to reiterate the information that was in your packet. City Engineer Ann Pagano is recommending that the commission authorize the necessary documents to receive approximately $550,000 in grant funding obtained by the Watershed Center Grand Traverse Bay for the removal and replacement of one culvert on Kids Creek at 11th Street. The grant funding requires a total match of $150,000 cash and $50,000 in-kind staff time. The commission may remember that this was an agreement that was pursued in a cooperative opportunity with the Watershed Authority back in November of 2023, and I know Sarah Uren is here as well from the Watershed. So I will turn it over to Ann.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So our agenda item tonight has three parts. The first is, as previously requested by the commission, Sarah Uren, the program director for the Watershed Center, will provide an update on the regional efforts related to watershed improvements. Secondly, we will present the plan for the culvert replacement at Kids Creek and 11th Street at the crossing. And finally, we are requesting the commission to consider approving an agreement with the Watershed Center to move forward with the 11th Street culvert replacement project and accept the related grant funding. So we'll start with the first part, which is Sarah.
Good evening. I feel like I was just here talking to you guys about salt, but maybe that was in the winter sometime. I don't know. But I am going to touch a little bit on salt later in my talk. But I know last time I was here, Commissioner Werner wanted an update on our Kids Creek Restoration Project because we have been working on it since 2013. So I wanted to give you a quick update on that. I'm Sarah Uren. I'm the program director at the Watershed Center in Grand Traverse Bay. And when Benjamin was talking about how long he's been with the city, I was reflecting on how long I've been at the Watershed Center, and I've been there since 2002. So,
Well.
I can't do that math that quickly. It's a long time. And we've been working on Kids Creek ever since I started at the Watershed Center, but really in 2013 is when things ramped up. So just to begin with, Kids Creek is an impaired stream. It is a tributary to the Borden River. A lot of it is in the city limits, but there are portions out in Garfield Township where the headwaters do start. It is on the impaired waters list mostly because of, it says lack of aquatic life and wildlife, but it's really macroinvertebrates, which are aquatic insects. And there's not a great community of insects in the stream, and that's how you can determine if a stream is healthy or not. But also, more recently, it has been placed on the impaired waters list due to E. coli bacteria contamination. That we haven't done a lot of the studies yet to determine the sources and why, but we just know that there are high levels of E. coli a lot of the times in the creek. And then also upcoming within the next impaired waters report, it will be impaired for chloride as well, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But basically, it's a 4-mile stretch of creek. Mostly the problems are stormwater, flow regime alteration, so all the stormwater coming into the creek and the flooding and the erosion and all those things that happen. So we've been working on Kids Creek, like I said, for a long time. We started with just basic stream bank restoration in partnership with the Conservation District. But really in 2013, if you remember, back then we worked with Munson and they were building their cancer center. And as part of that project, we daylighted a portion of Kids Creek, and that really kicked off our partnership with Munson and the surrounding areas. And that kind of fueled all of our next projects, which I'll show you a map of in a little bit. But that's, we've raised almost $10 million in grant funding. Most of that has been state federal grants. As you can see there, $7.8 million, but we've also had private grants and foundations. And then Munson themselves have been a great partner. You know, they've bought property, put the daylighted stream on. They've shelled out money to put in underground infiltration trenches and that sort of thing. So they've been a great partner as well. And then also the pavilions and the commons. And I don't think I have up there, but Meyer has been a great partner. I'll talk about that in one of my last slides with some of the more recent projects that we've done. So the initial goal for the restoration project was to reduce sediment and stormwater inputs to the creek. We started with Tributary A, which is on Munson's campus, and then we moved to Tributary AA. I think I've told you before that whoever was in charge of naming the creeks, tributaries of Kids Creek, was not that creative, so Tributary AA, because actually they didn't name it until they found A and B, and they had to figure out what's in between. So Tributary AA, we did some work there. That's the creek that's between the pavilions and the commons area. And then we moved on to working on the main branch and maybe some more western areas on Tributary A. And right now our current focus is on the main branch. So you can see the little map there on the bottom left. Those are all the tributaries, and A and AA are within the city limits there. A lot of our activities, in addition to the stream daylighting, we have done a lot of green infrastructure. You can see some of the pictures I have there for you are of our green infrastructure projects. And green infrastructure is basically a way of handling your stormwater on site and having it infiltrate into the ground rather than having it run off into a pipe or the nearest creek, which would be Kids Creek in this particular case. So we've done a lot of work on that. I have a map on the next page to show you. We've also reconnected the creek to its floodplain. We've established buffers. We've stabilized more stream banks. And we've also done a lot of road stream crossing replacements in conjunction with the city. So here's a map of some of our completed sites. I'm not going to read all those. You're welcome to do that if you want to, but Basically, a lot of the work, like I said, started on Munson's campus, and we had a successful project with them. I got my foot in the door with them, and I was like, you know, we were successful here with the stream daylighting. Can I apply for some more money to do some more work on your campus? And that coincided with other work they were doing. It was a great fortune of events because they were working on some things on their campus which allowed them to have match for our projects. Because as you know, when you apply for state or federal grants, usually you have a certain percentage of match. And so we were fortunate that they could come up with some of the match for us. So we did a lot of work there, and then we moved down into the pavilions in the Commons area. We had a successful partnership with Munson. Then I approached those two organizations, and I asked if we could start doing some work on their campuses, and they were supportive of that as well. So, so those were sites basically from 2013 to 2019. Moving further south, you see a map of completed sites from 2020 to 2025. Those are sites 14 through 19 there. All of those except the one at Meyer were in conjunction with the city. And those were the bioswale at the 14th Street storm drain ditch that goes right into Kids Creek. And then we did 3 road stream crossing replacements funded through NOAA. We did some trail crossing replacements. I have some pictures of these because they're pretty cool. And then our work with Meyer was pretty significant at the Meyer property. They were going to be resurfacing their parking lot, and I had heard that through the grapevine. So I had approached their director of sustainability, and I said, hey, while you have your parking lot opened, what if we applied for a grant and got you to do some underground infiltration trenches? So you're doing your work anyways. We would come in with our grant money while the ground is open up and put in our underground infiltration trenches. And they were 100% fully on board. And they actually went above and beyond what our grant could pay for, and they put in more underground infiltration trenches than what we had money for. So number 20 on the, I don't know, I can't point, but you can see number 20 on there. That is our current project that we're working on with the city. On 11th Street, this is funded through an Eagle 319 grant, so the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy through their 319 non-point source program. And as part of that, it also requires match, so the city is giving match as in-kind time for Zach to design the structure, and then also cash as far as helping pay for some of it as well. Future projects that Zach and I have been talking about, or the 7th Street road crossing. That's kind of our last one we have in the hopper for to do with the city. We also realize that there's another crossing at Division Street that MDOT owns, and that's a pinch point for the creek, but that's a larger beast to tackle, and we've started conversations with MDOT, but things take a little bit longer in that aspect, so we'll continue those conversations. So I wanted to show you some cool pictures because we're so grateful for the city's support in doing these projects, and I just wanted to show you a little bit of what we've done. So these are the large box culverts that we put in, 2 on Cedar Street and 1 on 6th Street. This was done in 2021, and it was about $1.9 million of NOAA funds. So that was pretty cool. You know, we had to reroute the creek. I dropped my phone in the creek. They didn't really want to let me back on site, but I got a new phone out of it, so it was fine. And we did fish the phone out of the creek, so it's not poisoning the creek anymore. But yes, this is why I like that project so much, because I got a new phone. Anyways, you can see these signs here. We were required to put up signs showing our partnership with the city and recognizing the funding that we got from the EPA and NOAA and then the city there. So some of these signs are temporary. I think the sign might still be up at the 14th Street Bioswale project. You can see that on Division Street. This is a really cool one. It's so beautiful. These are 2 culverts that were on. One of them was on, I think we called it it was like a trail that was like along the 14th Street ditch to meet up with the old Elmwood Avenue extension. And then one of these crossings was on the Elmwood Avenue extension. And This is back when Tim Lodge was the engineer, and when him and I were first starting to talk about this project, he's like, we don't need that to be a culvert that cars need to drive on. We can just make it a pedestrian bridge. But they did need to have access for, maintenance vehicles and that sort of thing. So rather than replacing the culvert with another culvert, we could replace it with these really pretty pedestrian bridges. So that project was funded by a little bit from Great Lakes Fishery Trust and then another Eagle non-point source grant. And then our most recent project that we completed in 2024 with about $750,000 from the DNR Fishery Habitat Grant Program and the GLRI program was, I just learned that it's called Silverbrook Acres. There was an article in the Ticker about it. I didn't realize that it was a park that was named, but it was the city's property between Silver Lake and the Meyer property there. And so in conjunction with all that work I was talking to you about at Meyer, we also got funding to put in a riparian buffer along Kids Creek, and then a tributary there. 480 trees, over 1,000 shrubs, and 1,500 live stakes were put in. Habitat was our contractor on that, and they did a fabulous job, and they've been doing some maintenance work there over the past couple years, and things are looking really, really good out there. So I'm excited to see that. And we'll be giving a tour there later in August to some hopefully some state senators, and I think some of you on the city commission got an invite for that too. So we really want to show how grateful we are to GLRI funding to fund a lot of these projects that we have, and we want to show people how important it is to keep that funding around. So I promised I would talk about salt just for a little bit. So another thing we are doing on Kids Creek is we have, in partnership with Trout Unlimited, we have these mayfly sensor stations, and they monitor depth, connectivity, and temperature. And the data is sent to an online portal, and then we manage the data, and through our volunteers, we maintain the sensors where they are. We have 2 of them. One of them is upstream of Silver Lake Road. The other one was downstream of 11th Street, but we moved it to the 500 block of 3rd Street now. So since 2020, when they were installed, we have seen connectivity spikes after snowmelt events. And I should back up and say, conductivity is a reflection of the chloride in the stream. So if you have higher conductivity, you're going to have higher chloride in the stream, and that's been a proven relationship there. So since we've seen the high conductivity spikes after snowmelt events, that led Eagle to conduct a more thorough study in our area, but other areas of the state, looking at chlorides. And that was what showed that Kids Creek is not meeting the water quality standard for chloride. So we continue to see conductivity spikes after snowmelt events, even just this past winter. So because of that, we applied for a Watershed Council grant through Eagle. It's state funding, and we were successful in getting that. It's just a small $40,000 grant they give out. That's slated to start in October 2025, so just a couple months. And as part of that, it's going to kick off a larger educational campaign that we want to do. We can't fix it all in a year, so we know that we want to start the ball rolling, get some basic things out there. So we'll have an online resource guide. We'll start with some social media posts and printed materials. We'll be working with Wisconsin Saltwise, which is a great organization in Wisconsin. And they have a lot of materials already done, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've already talked to them. We can reuse their stuff and put our logos on it. But we also want to bring it local too, and let people know, like, hey, Kids Creek is impaired for chloride, and here's how it's hurting us right now. So it's not something that we're trying to prevent happening. It's already happening, so we want it to stop happening. Also, we have planned outreach to neighborhood associations and outreach and technical guidance for municipalities. I've already talked to Frank and his crew. We had a meeting with them a few months ago. So he knows that we have this funding, and we're excited to start working together on that. So that's all I had. I don't know if you want me to do questions, Ann? Or
I'd like us to do questions on each
Okay.
segment, since
Okay.
you're doing it in 2 different ways.
Sounds
So
good.
Do we have questions right now? Go ahead, Heather.
I have questions, of course. So with the snow melt and stormwater pollution, Would a consistent riparian buffer help with that?
So the hard part about salt is that once it dissolves into water, there's no getting it out. So unless some scientists can figure out a way to disassociate those molecules from each other, but once the salt gets in the water, even if you have an infiltration system, even if you have a buffer, it's going to get into the lake, or
Okay.
I'm sorry, the creek, but
All right.
yeah.
My other question is, what do you call it, a square culvert, a
The
box culvert?
mhm.
Is it made out of concrete?
Yes.
So how long I mean, they used to be these big metal
I'm gonna look
round
Zach for that
things,
one.
right?
How long do concrete box culverts last?
Oh, is that right?
A long time.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
Can you repeat that in the mic, just for the people at
Oh,
home?
yes. So it was asked how long concrete box culverts last, and we have some that are 70 years old. So, or excuse me, 1930 was not 70 years
Yeah.
old.
Almost 100.
So longer
None of
than
us
the
want to
big
admit that,
metal
but it's almost
round
100 years ago.
Like 100 years. So it's a while. And what we're trying to do is right-size the culvert. So I didn't say that earlier, but a lot of the culverts are undersized or misaligned. And so the problem is that you get an undersized culvert and you get water, a bunch of water trying to get through, and it can't all fit through. And so it's
Absolutely.
spewing out the other end and backing up on this end. So, and that's not good. So that's
Right.
what we've been trying to do.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mitch?
Yeah, to that point, 11th Street is one of these undersized culverts. In the Great Flood of 2020, it was both undersized and how it's currently configured with a sharp bend in the creek immediately
Yes.
upstream that happens to catch logs and other debris.
Yes.
During that flood, the creek rose 5.5 feet, and I was able to take my canoe fully over 11th
Yes,
Street.
I heard that you were canoeing down the roads.
So I am glad to see
Yes.
it done. I'm very grateful of the work that's been done
Yes.
already.
Mhm.
You did say, though, that 11th Street is or 7th after 11th is the end of your vision of replacements within the city.
Mhm.
So you don't have on the docket, even if funding isn't available now but could be in the future, replacements on tributary AA where culverts
Oh,
under 11th, under Elmwood,
Elmwood.
near 7th Street, and under Madison Street near Division, near Front Street, sorry, are
Yes.
also undersized.
Yeah,
And
we
in the
haven't
last,
talked about tributary AA. Zach and I haven't, but we could. I will say that the tributary AA crossing under Elmwood, that was in the NOAA grant, but when we started doing the site investigations, and Zach can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a water and sewer line directly underneath where that culvert would sit. So if we opened it up and made it an open bottom culvert, we were afraid that it would erode out and then expose those sanitary and water pipes. So we would need to figure out a different fix for that one. So right now, it's not on the list.
and also it can be a logistically difficult
Yeah.
culvert to replace since the extension of Elmwood or the trail connecting to it are both non-motorized pathways. 11th Street, yes, it's a street that gets regularly used, but traffic can enter that area through other ways.
Oh,
But
right.
there isn't a real way to bypass traffic on Elmwood.
Oh, you mean for during construction?
Yes.
Yes, that is always the tricky part, and that's what I let the city deal with.
That is our job. All right, any other questions? Thank you for part one. That was great catch-up. Thank you.
Sarah actually made my job easy because she talked about a lot of the stuff that I was going to say. So let me just pull this up. So this is the preliminary plan for the culvert. It's in the packet. I think it's the last page of the memo. So as Sarah talked about, the goal of the project is to protect and restore aquatic life in Kids Creek by maintaining proper stream dimensions and sediment transport, which will also improve water quality. And this will be accomplished by replacing the undersized and misaligned culvert at the crossing. So hopefully you can see this okay. This is the current alignment of the creek where I'm kind of, can you see my hand on there? Yeah. So you can see it kind of takes a bend there, and then it goes underneath the culvert here. So we're proposing to straighten out this alignment and eliminate that bend in the creek, which will help obviously slow down the water, help with erosion control. And the existing culvert is 9 feet wide by 4.5 feet high, and the proposed culvert will be 16 feet by 4.5 feet high. Also, we'll be shortening the length of the culvert. You can see the old one was longer than the proposed, which restores more of the natural creek bottom. And then the green here, these are proposed bioswales that will treat water before it enters the catch basins, which then ultimately will drain to the creek through wetland areas. So these other green areas are proposed wetland areas, which will include native plants and other vegetation also for water quality. And we also plan to use natural geotextile for stabilization. And I think that's about it. If you have any questions, and Zach can help me with some of the more detailed stuff, as Zach oversaw most of the design here. So.
Great. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, is there any maintenance that you have to do on a bioswale?
I think we do some cleaning out of the bioswales like annually. Yeah, annual cleaning.
Like sediment kind of?
Sediment and debris, there'd be trash, that sort of thing that we would take out.
How many, do you know offhand how many bioswales you're
many we
taking care
have?
of? More than a dozen?
I'm not really sure. I could get back to you on that. We probably have them in our asset management.
Do you think that there are more than a dozen then? You don't know.
We're not sure. Sorry, but we can
Okay.
get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions? Questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I am very grateful to see the bioswales in this design as somebody that has taken a boat, not just over 11th Street, but under 11th Street through this culvert. It is rather low clearance thanks to the fact that the creek is constricted through there. And yes, I can stick my head up through the existing storm drains. So the fact that stormwater will have a slightly less expeditious route to dump all the potential contamination that it has into the creek is a good thing for the health of the waterway.
Was that a question?
Comment more like, expressing
Okay.
gratitude.
Was that wrapped up? Do we need another part for you? I feel.
I just was going to do part 3, which
Perfect,
was
yeah.
requesting the approval of the agreement. So last fall, the commission approved a contract to move forward with the design of the culvert, which fulfilled the $50,000 in-kind match detailed in the proposed agreement. And the agreement would also commit the city to contributing $150,000 to the construction, with funds coming from the general fund. And staff will return to the commission for approval of the construction contract in the future with the specific costs for the project after it's been bid. And staff recommends approving the contract and continuing our partnership with the Watershed Center to improve this natural corridor.
Fantastic. Any questions about that or a motion? Question?
I have a question, I suppose, for our now city clerk or our interim city manager, in that the motion in the thing says the typical language, subject to approval as to their substance by the city manager and their form by the attorney, but in the actual documents that have already been written up, it does have a name for our previous city manager.
Oh, that'll be corrected.
It's-
Yeah.
yeah,
You don't
that's-
have to worry about those
Yeah,
details.
that's why the city manager, and it doesn't name them specifically in the motion. And Jackie, you had a question?
Just to clarify the funding source, you mentioned general fund funding. Is that going to help to reduce our general fund balance and bring that more in line with guidance?
I don't know
I
if
don't-
I know the answer
I
to
would
that.
say that goes to the
Yeah,
staff.
I don't either right now,
Okay.
sorry.
That's
Yeah.
a Heidi question.
It's
Okay.
it's a Heidi question.
Yes.
Maybe some follow-up. Thank
Was-
you.
Yeah. All right, do we have a motion then?
And with regard to the motion, don't read the last 3 words.
I was just going to say, leave out the and further
It's a
that.
typo.
Yes.
And further that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that the mayor and city clerk execute the necessary documents to receive approximately $150,000 in grant funding obtained by the Watershed Center Grand Traverse Bay for the removal and replacement of one culvert on Kids Creek in connection with the Kids Creek 11th Street crossing improvements, with $150,000 cash and $50,000 in-kind staff time matching funds provided by the city, as outlined in the July 21st, 2025 communication from the city engineer, and that a budget amendment be made in the capital projects fund to reflect the receipt and expenditure of the grant funds, with such documents subject to approval as to their substance by the city manager and their form by the city attorney.
Second.
All right, I'll give that to Commissioner Shaw. All right, any other comments on this? All right, seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, great to see that work continuing. Okay, and last item here under the old business, sorry. Lots of old business tonight, is the change the ordinances for the C2 and C4A. And so I will hand that over to you, Deb.
So the commission has had this issue brought before them, I think, multiple times in regards to the rezoning of the 300 and 400 block of Union Street. There have been public hearings that have been held by the Planning Commission regarding this issue. There have been community input sessions, as we understand, and based on the meeting that was held most recently, the recommendation was to move forward with the Planning Commission's recommendation that the 300 and 400 blocks of South Union Street be rezoned from C2 Neighborhood Center to a C4 Regional Center. And I believe if there are any questions, we can answer those.
Do we have any questions or a motion? Go ahead, Heather.
I don't have a question, but I do have a question about my conditions.
Well, we need to have either a motion or a question up front. The statements are
I'll
after
make
a
the
motion.
motion.
There you go.
That amendments to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would rezone the 300 and 400 blocks of South Union Street from C2 Neighborhood Center to C4A Regional Center, as recommended by the City Planning Commission, be enacted with an effective date 8 days after publication.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Treadwell and Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, Commissioner Shaw.
Okay, so I talked a couple of weeks ago about this rezone and my two conditions. The first one was that that we have a zoning amendment for C4A that requires a green roof for all new construction above 30 feet. You can go to 45 feet with this new upzone. And I left it at 30 feet because I thought that property is so precious that nobody's going to want to stop at 30 feet. They're all going to go to 45 feet. And so I've had 2 weeks to think about this, and I've talked to other people. I've talked to some developer friends from Detroit and Memphis, and they all say, oh my gosh, the future is Traverse City. And that downtown property is so precious, and you have to do everything you can to protect it because people are coming. So I want to amend my condition to not just C4A, but to all C4s. I want green roofs on all C4 new construction. So, you know, stormwater management is the big dirty elephant in the room all the time. And we've been talking about it for years, but we've never figured out how to pay for it. And the city should be paying for stormwater management, just like we paid just now for the Kids Creek culvert. But I don't see why the city has to pay for stormwater management for new private construction. And a green roof is not a huge deal financially for developers. In fact, it's a cost saver. Grand Rapids is way ahead of us on this, and so I got a lot of information from them. According to the University of Michigan, the average cost to build a green roof is about $550,000. The cost of a regular roof is about $410,000. But over the lifetime of a green roof, you will save about $240,000 because it insulates and it lasts 3 times longer than a regular roof. It lasts 60 years. So this is not a huge deal for developers, but it is a huge deal for our downtown because we have 3.7 acres of rooftops. Green roofs are a good thing. They cool and insulate, and they remove 52% of ozone. They remove 27% of nitrogen dioxide and 14% of particulate matter. Now, we have a big ozone problem around here. We've had one since at least 2019, which is why we are designated a regional hotspot for climate change, because we've already gone those 2 centigrade degrees above what they say is the tipping point. We also have, over the last 2 years, a lot of particulate issues because of the fires in Canada and out west. So these green roofs will help, because forest fires are not going away and Chicago is not going away. But northern Michigan it's being designated all over the media as a climate refuge. And at the same time, we are growing like tropical weeds up here. So the people are coming. They're going to come whatever the cost or the inconvenience, because they've been told it's safe. And it's up to us to make sure that it stays safe, at least as much as what we can do here. The few things that we can do. Green roofs is something that we can do right now at very little cost to developers and a huge advantage to Traverse City. It's supported by the master plan. It's supported by the strategic plan, and it's generally supported by the residents of Grand Traverse Bay, who consistently rank the natural environment as one of the top characteristics that contribute to a high quality of life. We do not have to give anything away in this upzone. People are going to come and they're going to build downtown no matter what. Traverse City is a hotspot for climate and for population. This is a very small ask for developers and a huge gain in cost savings, energy independence, local control, and resilience. So that's my first ask. I don't know if you want me to stop there?
I do, because our city attorney has been trying to get my attention.
Yeah, sorry. So I have nothing against green roofs, believe me. And I think it's a good idea to encourage that, but the zoning ordinance is probably not the location in the city's regulations to do that. We have a stormwater ordinance for that, and the problem with including requirements like this in a zoning ordinance is that it's not necessarily tied to the land use, so it could be ruled to be an exaction. So you could have that overturned pretty easily, and we've seen that happen downstate. There was a case in Canton where that came up. And so I think it's a great thing to talk about on a long-term strategy, but I think we need to look at our stormwater ordinances or other places in the ordinance that we can tie it to a rational basis other than the land use. And we have those things in the stormwater ordinance already. And so I think that we need to look at that and beefing that up. We can't use zoning as a method to fundraise for stormwater. Does that make sense? That's not going to work legally for us.
Jim?
A non-legal opinion now. I don't disagree with what was said, but the strategic plan and the upcoming discussions, to me, are a great opportunity to be talking about stormwater. Because what we run into, for commercial property, new commercial property is required to treat all the stormwater that falls on their property, especially on their building. Some might get away if it's not 100% built on. The problem is old property. There's nothing that requires them to ever upgrade or do anything to address the stormwater. So the E. coli that gets into the bay and closes Sunset Park, that's probably largely from the downtown area through the river, in the culverts and the cities at fault too, because of parking lots and streets and such. But I really think that through the strategic plan, that's the opportunity to talk about how do we incentivize? Like, if we can't use sticks, how do we use carrots to get property owners and to get the city to start addressing existing problems with stormwater? I don't disagree that it's a problem, but to me, at least new construction is required to treat their stormwater, not necessarily by a green roof. Maybe staff can work with outreach to try to encourage maybe there's carrots there too, like their underground construction for water infiltration can be smaller if they provide a green roof, and maybe there's some economies of scale for them there. Anyhow, just my thoughts. Thanks.
Yep. You presented your first. We'll come back to that. You've got part 2 now.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I mean, we're just basically not going to do anything. Okay, so my second condition was a corridor plan. Now, I looked at the corridors master plan from 2013, and its overview and purpose was to improve the appearance, function, and vitality of the commercial corridors. There was no attempt in that corridor plan to critique the current traffic flow or to recommend alternatives. Nonetheless, in this strategic action plan, key actions and projects, which was a staff survey undertaken by department leaders, which was in our strategic plan, it was a packet item from today. 7th Street is called out as a less prominent corridor and is in the planning stages, a corridor. I do not want to see, I personally do not want to see 7th Street become a traffic corridor. I think that it's going to totally squeeze the residences between State Street and 7th Street, and then further west there between Front Street and 7th Street in a vice of commercialization. There has to be a better way to handle traffic. Let's see. I guess, just as I mentioned before, people are going to come here. They're going to come here no matter what. They're going to come here to pay top dollar to come here. And that alone puts our neighborhoods at risk. So let's not add to that by voting to support traffic corridors through established neighborhoods. I'd like to have an ad hoc set up as my condition to talk about traffic flow in the city and how to make it better, safer, and faster for all modes of mobility and all residents with their mobility needs.
Thank you. Anybody? Go ahead, Jackie.
This is not a question, it's a comment.
That's okay. We've got a motion, and we don't have to worry about that
Great.
now.
I'm going to be voting against this proposal, and I want to take one more attempt to explain why. When it came to us 2 weeks ago, I asked how it supported our newly adopted strategic plan, and we were told that this was a prime example of proactively managing urban design, strengthening placemaking and neighborhood character, and supporting environmental sustainability. My concern is that we received a portion of that story. For example, the actual strategic pillar on urban design states proactively manage urban design to protect local character and community feel. And I believe the second part of that pillar has not been fulfilled upon, and that we have a conflict between master plan and strategic plan. If you look at this zoning change in that context, you'll see the conflicts with the strategic plan. It replaces buildings that have currently a maximum 6,000 square foot footprint with buildings of an unlimited size of footprint. It replaces 70% impervious surface limits with 100% limits, potentially adding risk of runoff, contamination. It replaces uses by right such as florists and groceries and hardware stores and restaurants with use by right for convention centers and hotels. So in short, what it's doing is shifting the buildings on these blocks from a residential and human scale to much larger commercial scale. And that, to me, doesn't fulfill on the pillar to protect local character and community feel. So I understand perfectly that the property owners on these blocks of Union Street are endorsing and supporting this proposal. Their land values will increase with the upzoning, as well as their incentive to demolish current buildings and rebuild in the regional center model. So looking at it through the lens of our strategic plan, I can only vote against it, and I hope that perhaps some of you will consider doing likewise.
Thank you. Commissioner Treadwell.
Well, again, I'll argue that our current zoning code is not reflective of the community environment and the neighborhood character that exists. It requires that buildings be smaller than they currently are, shorter than they currently are, cover less of the area than they currently do. Most of the buildings that exist could not be built under C2 classification or operated like they are right now. One change that will come with converting to C4A is an expansion of a change to C4 zoning that we implemented, or this board implemented a couple years ago, that requires first floor uses at the door facing the street to be primarily retail, restaurant, or other commercial activity, not to be used for parking, not to be used for housing, not to be used as a short-term rental. All those uses could be allowed right now, so you can tear down a building and convert it to a parking lot. You could purchase a whole block in this area and convert it to a parking lot. But changing to C4A requires that we at least have storefronts on every parcel there, which I see as a preservation of that historic commercial district. Also, this change, though it comes before us, initiated by a specific property owner concerning 2 specific parcels, was expanded to 4 blocks, counting 2 blocks both sides of the street, because it's in keeping with our master plan that looks at changing this and a couple other corners of town. And it's consistent with all the discussions that we had leading up to that, and with the goals that have been set for the Planning Commission, now several times now, but the most recently ones identified 3 specific corridors for potential redevelopment and not necessarily wholesale rezoning, but looking to see what zoning classification best meets the current and future needs of that area. Those 3 corridors were this section of Union Street, 14th Street between Cass and Division, and Front Street from Hall to Division. Considering that this is something that was outlined with our master plan and the goals of the Planning Commission, I see no reason not to move forward with it and approve it today.
Thank you, Commissioner Treadwell. Any other comments? Jackie?
Just a reminder that this body never had the opportunity to vote on the master plan, and that it was a controversial piece of work. That's all.
Thank you. Good.
Oh, just quick comment. In our packet, we have a table. Is there a page number here? No page number. 1221, but there's not a page on it, or a number on the page itself. But it lists properties that were alluded to as far as being non-conforming. My guess is that a lot of them are non-conforming because of impervious coverage. It doesn't say exactly why. So to me, this gets back to the point I was trying to make, that largely it's existing properties and structures and parking lots that are burdening the stormwater system in the city. So to me, in a way, I guess why I'm commenting right now is that the upzoning, it doesn't really change that there's still impervious coverage, there's still a stormwater issue. So the upzoning is, to me, immaterial for addressing our stormwater issues.
Thank you, Commissioner Warner. I'm going to go ahead now and open this up for public comment. Is there any general public comment on this? Not general public comment, sorry, public comment on this item?
I'm going to read the rules.
Yep.
We ask that you state your name and address, indicate if you're a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
My name is Justin Reed. And I'd like to tell about the traffic issue. So when 14th Street gets redone, traffic is going to be going to the other parts, to the other streets as well as along 14th. So the whole entire thing about 7th Street being a traffic corridor, I don't think it would be much of a traffic corridor because it's a one-way street. I think that there's really nothing's going to change about 7th Street. It defining as a traffic corridor probably is because you got Central there. So, you know, traffic is going to be everywhere. Traffic is not just simply going to disappear. You have, you know, you can't move traffic everywhere else. It's just not going to happen. We have got stop signs down on 7th. You know, we have traffic control devices on streets to, you know, to go ahead and not make traffic go fast. And like I said, once 14th Street gets redone, it's going to have to be shut down, and traffic is going to go to other roads. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Go ahead, Mark.
I wasn't gonna talk about the traffic because it didn't seem like it was that relevant to this particular item, but I would be interested in said ad hoc or requested ad hoc, and being part of that discussion, as, you know, 7th Street is the only stoplight for westbound traffic from the other side of Boardman Lake to get to Munson. And so several Munson employees are taking that every single morning to get across to the hospital, and that's something to keep in mind. I don't know how you solve that problem by not taking 7th Street or putting a stoplight at 11th, but that's all.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Shaw?
Nope.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. All right, motion passes. All right, we are on to our new business, and we just have one item here, and this is the motion to go into closed session to discuss the annual review of Lauren Tribble Out. We do this every year. So does somebody want to make the motion? Go ahead, Jackie.
I move that the city commission enter into closed session immediately following the public comment portion of the agenda to consider the periodic personnel evaluation of city attorney Lauren Tribble-Locht as requested by the city attorney and as authorized by MCL 15.268A.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Treadwell. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor? Oh, no, sorry, roll call. Got it.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, motion passes. We'll go into closed session after the final public comment, and no motion or no action is anticipated. So we will come back to adjourn, but there's no action anticipated at this time. So we'll continue with the rest of the agenda and then public comment and go into that. So now we're on to appointments, and our first is for the Officers' Compensation Commission, and I was on this ad hoc with Commissioners Stanley and Warner. So we had very accomplished nominee for this position, so we're very lucky. So anybody want to make the motion, or any other comments from anybody on the ad hoc?
I'll make the motion that Karen Anku be appointed to the term expiring April 26, 2028 on the Local Officers Compensation Commission as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Amy Shanrow, Commissioner Mai Stanley, Commissioner Tim Werner.
Support.
All right, thank you. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, and now we've got the Coast Guard City Committee. And we've got their recommendation here, and I know there had been some issues to clear that up, and they were, so we'll go ahead and take a motion or any comments if anybody from the ad hoc wants to. What, Mark?
I'll just move that Stan Simons be reappointed to a 3-year term expiring August 25, 2028, and Deborah Ankerson be appointed to the term expiring August 25th, 2028, seat previously held by Steve Perdue on the Coast Guard City Committee as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioner Stanley, Commissioner Treadwell, and Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Support.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Treadwell. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And lastly, we've got a couple DDA appointments here. And that was a ad hoc that was myself, Commissioner Stanley, and Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. I did want to point out that one of our nominees that we're putting forward is Caitlin Early, who also serves on the Arts Commission. She would likely not be able to continue serving in that role. However, there is an Arts Commission representative from the DDA, and she has expressed interest in taking that if she is appointed to the DDA board. So I know she has leadership on the Arts Commission and is active on that and has no intention of actually derelicting that board if she is nominated, or if she's approved. So with that, I would take a motion.
I'll make the motion that Caitlin Early be appointed to the term expiring September 15th, 2027, and Todd McMillan and Shelley Spencer be reappointed for terms expiring September 15th, 2028 to the Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Amy Shamrow, Commissioner Mai Stanley, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Support.
Okay, Commissioner Stanley and Wilson, thank you. Any comment on this item? Go ahead, Jackie.
Just a question, whether there was any discussion among the ad hoc members about Ms. Early's employment with Tart Trails and the potential overlap or potential for conflict of interest, given that the DDA has been a contributor to some Tart Trail projects, and if she is open to recusing herself from votes on any such projects.
She has mentioned that before, that she is willing to recuse. She mentioned that in the interviews, that she works for TART and that she's always willing to, listen to how that works with her stuff. Now, because most of the DDA funding and grants and et cetera end up being approved by us at the end, she's not a direct beneficiary of it, but is very aware of that there could be a conflict of perception, so.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, and really quickly, we'll go into reports and correspondence. Is there any reports or updates anybody wants to give us from their respective boards? July's pretty quiet, so I'm not surprised. Mitch?
The Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Authority had our meeting last week, our quarterly meeting, when we went through the first half of our master plan review. That master plan was written up in 2009, and perhaps more than any other part of town, the Grand Traverse Commons has seen a lot of change in its 15 years. So there's a lot of updates to be made about what infrastructure exists, what the status of building construction and reconstruction is, what residential and commercial tenants exist in that area.
Thanks, that's great. Any others? I'll just add really quickly that we have the DDA meeting on Friday, and we did, one of the items was the updates on the Civic Square plans and the two that had gotten whittled down, but there is still public comment being taken, and there is a public survey. So as well as weighing in about your parks, please feel free to weigh in about the Civic Square as well, and that is online, so anybody can take that. All right, with that now, we will move into general public comment. So if you have any public comment on anything under the sun, it does not have to be any of the agenda items from tonight. All right, quiet bunch. Seeing none, we will bring it back. I will go ahead and I guess, recess this meeting while we go into closed session. Again, there's no action anticipated after this. We'll just come back and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
Sarah, you want me to just do the minutes for the closed session and for the... Why don't you go home? And I'll do that. Okay?
Hi, how are you? Good, good.
Yeah, if that's...
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I don't need to be in your room.
All right, I'll be kind and not even make us formally sit. We are all here. We are going to adjourn this meeting of July 21st. Thank you.